we give thanks for this precious day, for all gathered here and those far away, for this time we share with love and care. Oh, we give thanks for this precious day. Oh, we give thanks for this precious day, for all gathered here and those far away, for this light we share with love and care. Oh, we give thanks for this precious day. Oh, we give thanks for this precious day, for all gathered here and those far away, for this joy we share with love and care. Oh, we give thanks for this precious day. Oh, we give thanks. We give thanks.
Good morning and welcome to our community.
We'll open our service today by lighting a flame in chalice. We invite you to join us by lighting a candle or flame in chalice with us from your home too. We'll recite words our families often say while lighting the symbol of our faith.
We light this chalice because we are Unitarian Universalists. We are the fellowship of the open mind, the loving heart, and the helping hands. And together we can bring peace and justice into the world.
Mesias Family, that chalice lighting just warmed my heart, and I'm guessing that I'm not alone. Thank you. Welcome to our service that falls before Thanksgiving, a holiday that has a multiplicity of meanings. It's a time for counting blessings, for gathering with friends and family, for cooking and tasting, for football, for parades, for learning or relearning the history of the Native Americans and the early European settlers, a time off from school and work for some, and a time of giving. Our offering today will be split between the Morristown Unitarian Fellowship and Nourish, New Jersey, formerly the Community Soup Kitchen. If you are looking for a time of connection with our community on Thanksgiving Day, my family will be hosting a gathering on Zoom at noon Eastern. Bring a poem, a quote, an object, a photo, or something connected to gratitude to share with the group. Stop in for a few minutes or stay for the whole hour. You'll find the link in the order of service and on muuf.org/virtual. In our Sunday worship, we almost always include what we call a time for all ages. That part of the service is a message, an activity, a story, or a song with families and children in mind. But it holds meaning across the lifespan. Today, we have a sung story for all ages written by John Buccino called Grateful. To the children and to everyone here, the coronavirus pandemic we are living through reminds us of stories from history and from earlier in some of our lives. Over time, there have been periods where we have been faced with viruses that we don't understand well. We don't have the right medicines to treat yet, and that have led to people getting very sick. The Spanish flu of 1918 was another time when people wore masks to protect themselves, and also a time when health caregivers were on the front lines, risking their own lives on behalf of the well-being of all. This story and song, Grateful, first appeared in a musical called Urban Myths in the 1990s, a time when the HIV virus, which led to the AIDS epidemic, loomed large. John Buccino shares that these words are sung by a man who was dying from AIDS to his beloved. HIV/AIDS is much less contagious than COVID-19. For example, you can't catch it through talking or coughing, sharing a meal, or just being near someone. AIDS was a frightening prospect, though, especially before we had effective medicines to treat people. We're fortunate to live now at a time when there are treatments for AIDS, and all of us gathered today have the hope knowing that there are already 2 promising vaccines for COVID-19. When this song, Grateful, is sung, the actor is playing a person who is aware that their time left on earth will be short. And he is giving thanks for all that is, was, and will be his life. Let us listen to our music director, Stearns Matthews, as he gives voice to this story.
I've got a roof over my head. I've got a warm place to sleep. Some nights I lie awake counting gifts instead of counting sheep. I've got a heart that can hold love. I've got a mind that can think. There may be times when I lose the light and let my spirit sink, but I can't stay depressed when I remember how I'm blessed. Grateful, grateful, truly grateful I am. Grateful, grateful, truly blessed and duly grateful. In a city of strangers, I've got a family of friends. No matter what rocks and brambles fill the way, I know that they will stay until the end. I feel a hand holding my hand. It's not a hand you can see, but on the road to the promised land, this hand will shepherd me through delight and despair, holding tight and always there. Grateful, grateful, truly grateful don't want a lot, or hope for more, or dream of more, but giving thanks for what I've got makes me so much happier than keeping score. In a world that can bring pain, I will still take each chance, for I believe that whatever the terrain, our feet can learn to dance, whatever stone life may sling. We can moan or we can sing. Grateful, grateful, truly grateful I am. Grateful, grateful, truly blessed and duly grateful. Truly blessed and duly grateful.
I Tell You, a poem by Susan Glassmeyer. I could not predict the fullness of the day, how it was enough to stand alone without help in the green yard at dawn, how 2 geese would spin out of the ochre sun, opening my spine, curling my head up to the sky in an arc I took for granted. And the lilac bush by the red brick wall, flooding the air with its purple weight of beauty, how it made my body swoon, brought my arms to reach for it without even thinking. In class today, a Dutch woman split in 2 by a stroke, one branch of her body a petrified silence, walked, leaning on her husband, to the treatment table, while we, the unimpaired, looked on with envy. How he dignified her wobble, beheld her deformation, untied her shoe, removed the brace that stakes her weaknesses. How he cradled her down in his arms to the table, smoothing her hair as if they were alone in their bed. I tell you, his smile would have made you weep. At twilight, I visit my garden, where the peonies are about to burst. Some days, there will be more flowers than the vase can hold. I was pushing my BLT around my plate at the Lexington Candy Shop luncheonette, listening to the compassionate words of my peer group leader, who was trying to get me to say something. I could still hear our screams echoing on the 5th floor landing, echoing in my head from 2 hours earlier when I learned my father died. I was grateful. This kind 12th grader had shown up on our doorstep to come take me away from home, a place I didn't want to be. But I also didn't feel like talking, or I didn't know what to say, or I thought I might just start sobbing again if I tried, or all of those things. I couldn't even really hear, but I was trying to focus on the sequence of words she was sharing as she talked about anything and everything. I can only imagine she didn't have the foggiest idea of what to say to a 9th grader who had just lost a parent. Suddenly, between not taking bites, I remembered. It was my brother's birthday. No one had said anything. I'm not sure anyone remembered. My father had been in the ICU for 3 days. My brother probably had, I thought. We had to do something. I told Jennifer my realization and asked, "Would you help me get a cake?" She said yes. It wouldn't be one of those delicious birthday cakes that my mother would usually get from William Greenberg's bakery. My mouth always watered the moment I saw one of those white boxes tied with red and white string. It would be what we could find at the supermarket. As I walked the grocery store aisles, I could feel the heaviness of my brother turning 13 that day, an age that is associated with more adult responsibilities. Instead of a bar mitzvah and a party like our cousins had to mark that milestone, my brother would become the man of our house. We found the aisle with Entenmann's and picked up one of their cakes and some birthday candles. How would I muster the strength to sing? How could I not figure it out? For William, I thought, I will. When we arrived back at the apartment, we dimmed the dining room lights, lit candles, and called for my brother to come out, and those who had begun to gather for a death sang together for a life. I remember saying to my brother that year and following it, "Our dad passed in the morning, and you were born later in the afternoon. Today is about both. In the beginning of the day, we mourn. At the end of the day, we celebrate." That instinct that I had at 14 to make space for both loss and joy on a day that contained both was wise. Even as the thought that we could neatly separate waves of grief and waves of celebration into two halves was naive. That day will always contain a mixture of both, and I have learned to be present to the range of feelings that arrive when they do, and not by my command. Yet the spiritual practice of making space for joy, even in the midst of suffering, was important and allowed for new possibilities to emerge. The spiritual practice of making space for suffering in the midst of joy is important too. When everything seems to be going your way is definitely a time to share your resources, strength, and compassion with someone who needs it. I think about that peer leader who was also a teenager, whose parents were alive and healthy, letting in a fraction of my sorrow. Thank you for that. It changed my life. The lesson that a day or a week or a month or a year will contain even great sorrow and great joy is one that has returned to me many times over the years. It is present to me now in the year that shall be known as terrible 2020, as we embark upon the season of holidays of cheer and light. Diwali celebrations were held last week. Thanksgiving is coming up this Thursday. 2 weeks later, it's Hanukkah. 10 days later, solstice. A few days after that, Christmas. The next day, Kwanzaa begins. And a week later, New Year's. It has been a year of terrible loss. The death toll is higher in every state this year. We are in the midst of a higher spike of coronavirus diagnoses than the original spike that shut us all down for a time. Almost 200,000 people a day are being diagnosed in the country right now. It's been a time of racial reckoning in the face of rising violence against brown and Black people in the form of mass incarceration, police brutality, overtly racist rhetoric and actions that bruise bodies and spirits and sometimes end lives. Wildfires have raged in Australia and in the Western United States. Our democracy has been systematically undermined. The gap between the haves and the have-nots has widened, leading to housing insecurity, food insecurity, and mental anguish. Oh, and did I mention that for a good portion of the year, we couldn't be nearby one another to offer a hand or a hug or to have a shared meal? It hasn't been a year without joy, though. It might feel that way sometimes. We have found new ways to be together. Online video conferencing has allowed people to spend time with friends and family who live nearby and who live very far away. It's not the same, but at times it can be quite special. Physical distancing has meant less quality time with some people and sometimes more quality time with others. All that togetherness can be quite stressful, but it can also bring some people closer together. The pandemic has convinced some couples that they have what it takes to make it and don't want to wait. In fact, I officiated at socially distanced outdoor weddings the last 2 weekends in a row. New babies have arrived on the scene in 2020. People who didn't expect to make it around the sun one more time have had birthdays once again. Some have survived cancer, heart attacks, and challenging bouts with COVID. 2020 has had its measure of joys amidst the trials. We at the fellowship have had things to celebrate too. It's our 15th anniversary of shared ministry, and our community turns 65 this year. We're working on our sacred spaces at the Morristown Unitarian Fellowship and creating outdoor community gathering and play spaces. If you haven't been on our property, come by and walk the labyrinth. See our new Gaga pit, fire pit, and basketball hoop, and the playgrounds and landscapes in the making. We might even break ground in the spring or summer of 2021 for the work around our oval, and we're planning the timeline around breaking ground for a new addition. So exciting. And while our property is an important vehicle for our spiritual community, it's not the only one. We have charted new territory online together. You see, in the end, it is the people who make up our fellowship and how we gather in person or online for inspiration and connection and to care for one another and the wider world that makes us us. I both miss getting to be up close with those of you who I am used to seeing on Sundays and throughout the week. And I am so grateful that we have connected to those of you who found us online, who live near and far in New Jersey and even in other countries. We didn't cease to be just because we weren't in the same physical space. And we are becoming more than we were before in a number of ways. Our wider community has been organizing and building networks to mobilize people and power and money, to create more affordable housing, to reduce mass incarceration, and to create greater access to mental health and addiction services through the newly forming chapter of Morris area, New Jersey together. Yes, there is joy and healing and justice building happening in 2020. We have seen firsthand the ecological changes that are possible if we all commit to a lighter carbon footprint on Mother Earth. I'm so thankful that signs point towards our country rejoining our global neighbors in the Paris Climate Agreement in the new year. This is a day, a week, a month, a year of mourning and celebration. I remember when our minister came to visit my family at our home to help us plan the memorial service for my father. He asked me, "What's your father's favorite hymn? And what's yours?" At the time, my dad's was "Morning Has Broken," and mine was "Joyful, Joyful, We Adore Thee." I said, wouldn't it be strange to sing those songs of joy at a memorial service? He asked me, when you think about your dad's life and what he meant to you, do you feel joy? Yes, of course I do. Well, we are celebrating his life, so I think hymns of joy sound just right for his memorial. Now, I'll share that for a long while, and many years after that, I would cry any time I heard those two joyful songs again, because they brought to mind his loss. As I said earlier, as I have gotten older, I've moved away from separate spaces for joy and sadness. Now, when I hear those songs, if tears come, I know they are evidence of the joy I felt with my father and the love I felt from him. As I have said at many memorials and celebrations of life with you, sorrow is evidence that we have loved and been loved in return. Joy and woe are woven fine. So, my beloveds, feel it all, your sadness and your anguish too, to whatever degree they are present. Suppressing and the opposite wallowing will only make them grow. But creating space for them to be present and tended to can be very healing. May your sorrow expressed be a teacher allowing you to learn what and who matters most to you? If something or someone is gone temporarily, then when they return, I hope that you will find ways to give them plenty of space and room and to let them know what they mean to you. If something or someone is gone permanently, which happens to all of us at some point and in differing measure, may you find ways to accept that loss and to touch gratitude for the time that you had with what or with whom you cherished. Now, if the loss stems from a matter of injustice, may you find partners with whom to create just change for yourself and for the others who may come after. May this be a time for all of us of reorienting our lives in the direction of a life-giving love and a love-giving life. Let us make space at our Thanksgiving tables and in our Zoom gatherings for the fullness of life. Let us offer a seat or a box for our grief to sit beside our gratitude. Let us give thanks for what we have and who we have in our lives, whether we can be right next to them or not. Let us acknowledge that sorrow is the companion of joy, and that the mere fact that any of us is alive is something to celebrate. One more day to get it right, to make mistakes, to give and forgive, to laugh and shed tears, to transform, to heal, to grow. May this year bring with it opportunities to enjoy some traditions and the permission to do things a little or a lot differently. Maybe we'll use the gifts of our imaginations and create something better than we inherited from past years. Maybe we'll appreciate what we had before to a greater degree. Maybe we'll finally separate from the illusion that we are in control of what happens and settle into the clarity that our choice comes in how we respond to what happens. In the end, I don't know who will be at the holiday table next year. What I do know is that I'm grateful to be alive today and for the people who are alive around me, with whom I co-create family, a congregation, and wider overlapping and concentric circles of community that link us ultimately to the whole world. What I do know is that I am so grateful right now for teachers, health caregivers, vaccine researchers, community organizers, climate activists, artists, innovators, and all of you. What I do know is that it's important to take the time to say what we have on our hearts. In the end, I think that's what holidays are ultimately about. So let me say this. Thank you. I love you. I miss you. And I'm so glad that we're here in the way we can be together. That's something to celebrate any day and every day, whether it's a good day or a bad one. So let us sing a song for life, even in a time of death.
Both the privilege of giving and the blessing of getting, we remember to
We are so glad you came today.
At the end of our worship, we'll sing us our chalice. We invite you to blow out your flame as we do, and we'll say words by Elizabeth Steele Jones.
We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.